What's going on, guys? Crashendo here, and today I'll be making an updated version of the Venenatis lure guide. This isn't a new lure, this is the same lure, but I'm basically going to explain to you guys how everything works. And I'm going to be showing you guys a different method, basically how to brute force move an NPC, and I'll be explaining it later on in the video using my Calphite Princess pet. So once you see me lure this, you can decide that you want to try and use this method. But if you want to understand game mechanics more, I suggest sticking around for the entire length of the video. So here, same thing, moving, getting out of Venenatis' attack range, but basically Venenatis is stuck here. If I attacked it, Venenatis would try to move home, which we don't want it to do. So this is where I decide that I either need to move underneath it from one direction or the other direction. The reason why I moved underneath it in the way that I did the last time that I made this video, which was 4 spaces from the north where I am now, is because if the NPC decides to move a direction, it has to queue a new movement tick, and basically through trial and error, you'll most likely get it to move south from where it currently is if you're back there. But you can also brute force it, which I'm about to do here. So I'm going to click underneath it and then click back so it doesn't attack me. And you see that it moves south. It won't always do that, but there's a chance that it can do that. It's blocked to the west originally, so it can't move that direction. And it's going to sound really awkward when I try to explain this later, but just trust me on this. So now that it moved to the south, we can go ahead with the lure. I do not actually need to walk underneath it anymore, which is perfect because that pretty much makes it so we don't take any damage. And this is the nice part of the lure, because as soon as you get it south from where it originally was standing, even if it's only by 1 square, your lure is perfectly set up. You just can't walk into its attack range and walk underneath it, because then it'll instantly go for a movement queue tick. So we're going to walk over here, and you'll see where I am. I'm going to walk behind the tree again, well, more rather run behind the tree, and Venenatis, gets lured. Pretty simple stuff, very nice. So that's pretty much it for the lure. You just needed to move south once. Now, the reason why I say that it's like a 100% chance or a 99% chance is because the way that I originally showed you guys, Venenatis has to decide where it wants to move. Since it cannot move to the west, it either has to move south, east, or north. But here's the thing. NPCs do this thing called a movement tick. Say I walk underneath Venenatis, like I did earlier, Venenatis will instantly try to move. It can move north, south, east, or west. Even though it was blocked to the west, it can still try to prioritize a west movement queue, which is very awkward for us, because if it decides that, then we have to wait another tick for it to move, which, fortunate for us, is 0.6 seconds. Now, this is going to sound really sketchy for some people, because I'm going into game ticks here, and a lot of people, they choose to ignore the fact that game ticks exist, and they don't like to deal with the fact that, you have to understand what game ticks are. So basically, originally when I made this video, the original lure video, you saw that I moved underneath its back leg, and the reason for that being is if it decided that it wanted to move north, it would have to pull a movement queue tick after it moved north 1 space, because I'm still underneath it. So it could decide that it wanted to move back south 1 space, which then it would create another tick where it could move south again because it's not blocked. There was a successful movement tick. Now, it could also move to the east once, and it can move there again if it really wanted to. But basically, I was trying to much chance of the NPC moving south that I could possibly do, because I didn't really want to explain how NPC ticks worked, NPC movement ticks worked, because it's very difficult for players, especially players that have no idea how NPCs decide to move or how game ticks work, to kind of comprehend. And this is very awkward for me to talk about, because in all honesty, if I make a mistake here and I say the wrong thing, people will get upset if they already know how NPC ticks work. So it's very difficult for me as just a player, as a person, to kind of explain this, because it's a very touchy topic. Not in the sense that it will offend people, but in the sense that you need to know your shit or you're gonna get roasted. So basically, originally when I made this video, I wanted to give players, without having to explain everything to them, the best chance of getting the Venenatis lure down. But people didn't understand that you had to like sit underneath Venenatis and just let it do its thing and walk around, because Venenatis will not always move to the south. I've actually gotten very lucky. Every single time that I've done the lure, it has always moved south immediately. But when I've helped my friends with the lure, I always have to explain how NPC movement ticks work and everything, and it's very difficult because lots of logic. So here I get the kill. 100 unicorn horns, Herblore secondary is awesome thing for an Ironman. So now here we are at the Gnome Stronghold bank, and where I'm standing, I want the NPC to move, because it can't move to the north, it can't move to the east, and it can't move to the south. But if it was standing where I'm standing, it can move to the west. So I'm going to try and get it to move there. I'm going to walk underneath it here, and you're going to see it instantly moves as soon as I walk underneath it. Now, I'm going to move underneath it again. It's going to get stuck there, and I'm going to move underneath it in a second here. Well, more like a couple seconds, but basically it can't move to the north, it can't move to the south, and it can't move to the east. The only direction that it can move is to the west, but the game does not know this until the NPC registers a movement queue. So when I walk underneath it, the NPC might say, let's try to move north, and it will try to move north, but say the game will return, there's an object there, we can't move it, queue another movement event. And it will queue another movement event, and it will say, let's try to move maybe to the south, and it will say we can't move there, and it will try to queue another event. So eventually it will walk out to the west. So here you see it didn't move instantly, but it did move pretty quick. So I'm going to get it lured to the spot again a couple more times, and you're going to start to see what I mean by it has to queue these movement checks. And it's very easy to explain how this works. Basically, you can come at an NPC from any direction, and it will move basically any random direction. Like I said, it likes to prioritize east to west more than it likes to prioritize north to south. Maybe I didn't say that this recording, but when I tried to record this just a bit ago, I was explaining it. We'll say that north and south have a 20% chance of being moved to each, and then east and west have a 30% each. So it can still move north and south, but it has a higher chance to move east and west. And here I get it to move where I want it to move. So I'm going to walk underneath it, and you see it takes a lot longer for it to move than it did the first time. And the reason for that being, and I don't know this for 100% fact, but is it tried to move north maybe, said can't move there. Tried to move south, said can't move there. But now the game doesn't remember that there was an object to the north, so it could try to move back to the north, and it will say there's an object there, we can't move there. And it can continue to go back between north and south, but that's why it has a weighted priority towards any direction, especially east and west. Now that being said, like I said earlier, it can have the chance to move to the east even though it's blocked, and that's how this works. So I'm going to get it to move back into the spot one more time for you guys so I can kind of explain how this works. And yeah, I'm going to basically just try and simplify this here in a second. So I'm going to get it to move there. I'm going to walk underneath it, and it's going to take 8 ticks to move. Now, theoretically, it should only take 4 ticks to move because there's 4 potential directions, but it takes a total of 8 ticks. This is where it gets difficult to explain, and this is where I'm going to stop explaining it because I can't go too much more into detail without confusing a lot of people. But basically, it can try to move north, south, north, south, north, south, and it can continue to do this. The clip's going to end and it's going to go to black screen, but now I'll just finish explaining this. It'll take probably about like 30 seconds here, so 30 seconds of black screen. But if I move underneath an NPC and it's blocked in different directions, it can still try and move in the directions that it's blocked, but the game will return that there's an object there, so it has to queue a new movement tick every 0.6 seconds. Every 0.6 seconds, a game tick registers. Basically, I think it's 2 ticks with the blowpipe against monsters, 3 ticks against players, I believe, and etc., etc. So NPCs have their own tick window, which you can manipulate, just like you can manipulate skilling tick windows for like 2 tick woodcutting, 3 tick mining, or 3 tick fishing, versus the regular 5 tick woodcutting and 5 tick fishing, and I think 5 tick mining, etc. So it's pretty simple. I hope this has been a bit more informational than my last video. I'm really sorry if I confused a lot of people with this one, and I'm really sorry if this was hard to follow for some of you guys, but I really had to make this video because a lot of people were asking about it. But basically, you need to move underneath Venenatis, and it opens up an instant tick window, and if it moves to a direction, you move out from underneath it, just because if you move into the safe zone, it won't move away, it won't attack you. That's why I did what I did there. But originally, in the original video, where I move is probably the best bet option for people that are just trying to not really have to understand all these mechanics, because if you try to understand these mechanics and you're just not getting it, it's going to frustrate you, and it's going to annoy you to the point where you're just going to say you're going to not do it. But I want people to understand game mechanics, so if you were able to follow this, I hope it was easy enough to follow, and I hope it was informational. If you weren't able to follow this, do not feel bad, because this is stuff that took me years upon years to understand and figure out. So I hope this helped you, and good luck with the Venenatis. Sorry for the black screen here, but I hope you guys have a wonderful day.